Well, hi, everybody. It's another Conversations with, and I'm delighted today to have my good friend John Paul back. And John is the auto editor for the AAA, and he has a great column every month in their little brochure that we get, that those of us who are in AAA, and if you're not, you should be. But John, I started to say, I'm amazed at all the things that AAA offers.
Oh, yeah, AAA.
I mean, there's insurance,
Yep.
there's
Insurance, car loans.
financing,
You can
loans.
refinance your car loan, your mortgages, certificates of deposit, full service international travel agency, local travel, and you still want a map? You can still come to a AAA office and get a map.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's and of course everybody thinks AAA. Oh, if you get in trouble, they come and take care of you. You know,
We do that too.
Which they do. Well, John, you know, I have to be honest with you. I was talking to a friend of mine who came up and said, hey, I saw that program you do with that fella about cars. And he was telling me a war story about a friend of his who leased a car.
Yep.
And when he went to turn it in, all excited, going to go in and get a brand new one, and boy, oh boy, and I forget the exact number, but it's somewhere between $3,500 and $4,000, the dealer says, well, you owe us.
Yep.
What do you mean I owe you? You know, and he says, well, you had a 10,000 mile lease, and you got 16,000 miles or whatever it was on the car, and that's 25 cents a mile, and that's how much that is. And so he was, of course, stunned. And now what? You know? And so I thought it might be worth it to get you to chat about that and get your thoughts on leasing and buying. And leases are great, but you got to be aware of everything.
Yeah, you really do, and it's one of those. Who was the steel magnate? Can't think of who he is. The guy who owned one of the big steel companies in
Mellon.
Could have been, and he said Carnegie, and he said. Buy a appreciating asset and lease a depreciating asset. And nothing depreciates faster than a new car. So leases to some extent make some sense. But it's a little bit of the big print giveth and the little print taketh away sort of thing. Because you look at something and say, oh, I can lease that car for $229 a month, but it's the low and some of them are ultra low mileage leases, so you have to watch out for that. You have to pay for that. You want to put more miles on, well, you either pay for it up front and say, well, I'm going to put 20,000 miles a year, raise my payment up so it makes sense. Or the other thing you have to watch out for is you have to give the car back in reasonably good condition with normal wear and tear.
That's right.
Now, one of the things, if you lease a car for, say, 3 or 4 years, when you bring it back, if the tires aren't at least got 4 or 5 30 seconds of rubber on them, you're going to have to bring it back with a set of tires on the car.
Yeah.
So you might bring it back and they're going to say, well, yeah, the car looks all great except for the $800 you owe us for tires or $1,000 you owe us for tires. Right. And people don't look at, you get all excited when so your friend might be better off looking at that and saying, you know what, I kind of like the car.
Yeah, you could buy
Maybe
it.
I can buy it.
Yeah.
And that's gonna solve part of the problem, because now all of a sudden that extra mileage comes off his bottom line of it, so he can end up with the car at a little bit better deal. And if he's taking care of it, it might be a great used car to own. So you have to be a little bit careful. Some leases it's like a lot of things that look like a good deal. If you follow all the rules, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
If you don't follow the rules, I was talking to somebody who flew on one of those cheap airlines, and they said, I'll never do that again. I had to pay for my bag. I had to pay for my drink. I had to pay for my ticket. And I'm like, well, I've flown on those cheap airlines, but I print my ticket at home. I buy my snack before I go on the plane, and I carry a little bag with me, and I stuff it under the seat, and I don't pay any extra. I said, as long as you follow the rules, it makes sense. You don't follow the rules, so you get what you get.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with leasing a car. You have to make sure that you read all the fine print. Nobody ever reads it.
13 pages.
It's a whole bunch of stuff, and you look over, and there's 3 other people signing the same thing, so you go, well, it must be okay.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things you really have to look at. The other one, not popular now, but still around every once in a while, is there's a final payment sometimes. So sort of a balloon payment or a termination of the lease payment. So you put $3,000 down, you pay $199 a month, and your 36th payment is $5,000.
Yeah.
Well, that's how they kept the payments down in between.
Yeah.
Let's face it, the car manufacturers can't lease a car for a couple $100 a month and make any money. What they're hoping for sometimes is there was a real shortage of used cars back a few years ago. And what they did is they leased a lot of cars because it helped build up the used car market when it came back. And dealers sometimes will make more money on a used car than they will on a new car.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to remember why all this is happening. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah, it probably is.
Well, I see one of the dealers now has got a 200,000 mile
warranty.
Warranty.
Yeah. Well,
and you can drive around the world 8 times. Guess what? What's warranted? You know?
Yeah, and I mean the Hyundai, Kia, and Mitsubishi all have 100,000 mile warranties.
Yeah.
And they're legitimate. They cover the engine, the transmission, the drivetrain, and they'll take care of what needs to be done. What the dealer's doing is they're taking out a separate insurance policy, figuring you're never going to keep the car 200,000 miles anyway. So it's just another sales tool. Yeah. And that's one of the things, and I always try to remind people when they go to buy a car, that the dealer doesn't make a lot of money on the car, if they make anything at all. They make the money on gap insurance. They make the money on the loan. They make the money on
I want to talk to you about that.
The fabric protection, the wheel and tire insurance.
Not only that, but you read some of those deals, and there's now, they call them dock fees.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's just a ripoff.
Well, I absolutely agree with you on that one. And
then they got an acquisition fee.
Sometimes
that's another new
one.
So I said, well, what do you mean? I got to pay you to buy a car from you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I do now, when I go in to get a car, the first question I ask is, what's your dock fee?
Yeah.
And they used to be $100, $200. Now they're $600 and $700.
They're getting ridiculous.
And I say to them, look, all that is for me to pay you $695 so that the F&I guy can sit there and type the form for me.
Yep.
The most I'll pay for a dock fee is $299.
Yep.
I said,
and you're $299 more generous than I am.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And the point is, and I'll say, well, wait a minute. Well, I said, look, I don't care where you do it.
Yeah.
You can add $250 to my trade-in, or you can lower the price of yours by $250. Yeah. If you got to show $695, show it. But I need more money on either end.
And they actually have to do that, because anybody who's ever bought a car and they look at where it says documentation fee, it's always pre-printed in.
Yep.
Because what happens is, if I go in and I pay the $599, and you go in and you don't pay the $599, it's discriminatory sales. They can actually be sued for discriminatory sales practice. So they pre-print it right in there, and they say, no, everybody pays exactly the same. That's why it's in there. But the reality of it is, somebody like you who's a good negotiator, you go in and you say, I'm just not paying it.
Oh.
And I've done that successfully a couple times, and a couple times not as successfully. I was at a dealership when we bought my wife's car back in 2015, and I said to the guy, I think I'm going to sneeze, but I said to the guy, excuse me, that I'm just not paying the dock fee. And he goes, well, everybody pays dock fee. And it happened to be a little small dealership, and the owner walked by and said, what's going on? I said, well, I want to buy this car, and I'm willing to pay. I think we've agreed on a decent price where you make a little money. I feel like I got a deal. But I said, I just don't pay dock fees. And he looks at me and he goes, okay. And that's all. It was that easy. Yeah. On the other hand, when I bought my last car last year, I said to the guy, I don't pay. He says, everybody has to. So I walked out the door, expecting to get a phone call. Never did. Oh. So I walked back, and I said to him, I'm not going to. And he said, well, if you finance it through me, I'll take another couple $100 off. And I said, well, I don't really want to finance. He said, finance it through me for a couple months. They get their 0.5% when the documentation goes in, and then I ended up financing with somebody else. So I didn't save it all, but I saved part of it, and I felt a little better about it.
And a lot of people don't realize they get hit with that.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of hidden fees, but the ones that bother me the most are things like gap insurance. So if your insurance doesn't cover the value of the car, if it gets totaled or something like that, and I know we sell it at AAA. We sell gap insurance if somebody takes out a loan, and we sell it for about, in some cases, half of what the dealer does, and we make a little bit of money on it. So the dealer's making a lot more money on it. Wheel, tire, and key insurance. I mean, the key to your car is probably $800.
$256.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. But you can buy a policy to cover lost keys. Well, the dealers can sometimes get $1,200 or $1,500 for it. They just roll it into the cost of a loan.
Yeah.
We sell a very similar product for about, depending on the car, $400 or $500. It covers for 5 years, and it covers wheels, tires, and the key, and in fact, paintless dent removal if the car is new enough. So, so you look at those things, and that's where they make the money. They don't make the money so much on the car anymore. They make the money on all the extras.
Well, there's no question that many times they make more money on dock fees and and these little grabs. I call them grabs. Than they do on the. They'll give you the car.
Yeah.
And another thing, you mentioned it, financing. They want you to finance it through them because they get a kickback.
Oh, they do. Yep.
And that's an extra couple of bucks.
No, I was talking to somebody just the other day who went through our car buying. So we have a car buying service.
Yeah.
And they went through it, and they went to the dealer, and the dealer said, well, you have to finance through me. And the guy said, well, I don't want to finance through you. I want to finance through my credit union because I have everything I own in the credit union, and I like having everything all under one roof. The guy said, well, I can't give you the price. And I looked over the paperwork, and it was nowhere in there to say you had to finance through them. So I called our company up, who called them up and said, no, this is the deal. You can't force them to finance through you on that particular
what I usually say is, I mean, I just kept my score. My score is 850. Now, so is Warren Buffett's.
I've never checked mine. I have no
idea
idea
what
it is.
Higher than 850.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And so I'm a dream.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm a dream. But I can get what I want.
Right.
Like you mentioned the credit union. I have a local credit union here that I can get 2.2%.
Yep.
You know, on anything from a 2014 to a 2019.
Yep.
So I say to the guy, if you can get me better than 2.2, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, get me 1.9.
Yeah.
You know, like BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, the high-end guys are all running a 1.9 on select vehicles.
On select vehicles. Yeah.
And so they can get it for you.
Yeah.
Now the problem is, and then it says Little Smith must qualify. Well, if you don't have 740 or better, forget it.
Yeah.
You know, you're not getting 1.9. But so you can usually work that.
Yeah.
But you're smarter if you let the dealer have it, if he can get you the deal.
Right.
Because that gives him a couple of bucks more.
It does. It does. They might get 1/4%. They might get 0.5% on the loan, and they get it within the first 90 days. So if you decided to go with them and then you wanted to pay cash for it after that, you could just, as long as there was no penalty.
You mentioned that. My father-in-law buys a new Cadillac every 2 years. Calls me up, and he was with the dealer, and he's making a deal. And he calls me up and he says, Dick, they want me to finance. I don't want to. I pay cash.
Well,
I just write them a check. They want me to finance it. I said, Ernie, I said, here's what you do. I said, grind them for another $500. Then let them finance it.
Yeah.
And I said, wait 3 months, and then go to your finance company and pay it off.
Yeah.
I said, that way he gets his kickback.
He gets his kickback.
I said, he's probably tight in the deal.
Yeah.
And he's looking he probably gets a couple of $100 out of this deal from them, you know. And then I talked to him about, what's the dock fee? I don't know. I said, well, you better check. Yeah. Well, he calls me back, it was like $7.95.
Oh, geez.
I said, grind him. I said, don't pay that dock fee. Tell him you'll pay $300, that's it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what? I said, you tell him to either give you a little more for your trade, or lower the price of his car to cover that discrepancy. So he calls me back a day later. He says, I finally made the deal with the guy. He says,